Every single one of you brings some expertise to the room, and I want to thank you so much for coming and bringing that knowledge and being willing to share it with us to help us address the issue, because we do have a problem here. And right now I think there are really kind of three people in McLoud and in this area. And there's the people that are selling and using drugs, the people that are afraid of the people who are selling and using drugs, and then the people who are just oblivious of what's going on. And I think, you know, kids in our school fall in really the first two categories. They're using drugs, or they're scared of those who are using or selling drugs. When I came 2 years ago, I was not familiar with the area, so much of what I learned from Angie Drew, the junior high principal, who's been here for 8 years now. And so I may call on her to intervene in some things, because she has been here longer than I have. But I knew when I came that there was, you know, there was a little bit of a marijuana problem, which, you know, any school you go to that I've ever worked in 21 years has had a little bit of a marijuana problem. It became pretty obvious that it was just a little bit more than marijuana shortly after I came. So I came 2 years ago. We started school on a Thursday. We went Friday. We had a senior boy suicide that Saturday. So that's kind of how my time started here at McLoud. We had a suicide after the first 2 days of school. So we knew there was a problem. We noticed, and I was told, there was some obvious drug activity just right across the street. And so as I worked here over the summer, I'm pretty aware of my surroundings, and I started noticing, wow, at that time of day, there starts to be a lot of traffic over there. There starts to be a lot of cars, you know, showing up and not staying very long and leaving, and it just became very obvious. Immediately, within the first week of school, we caught students with alcohol, bringing alcohol to school, and that's pretty common at the high school or junior high level. About the third week of school, I walked into a classroom, and I always tell someone that, you know, since I got pregnant with my twins, I had developed this keen sense of smell. I should probably work as a drug dog, but I walked into a classroom, and I asked how everything was going, and the teacher said, fine, and I said, oh, but we have a problem. And they're looking at me, and I said, I can smell marijuana. And the kids everybody got really quiet, and I just walked around the room. And I was like, it's right here. I said, you four, come with me. And we came to the office, and we did a search, and there was not one bag of the 4 kids that I searched that I didn't find something illegal in their bag. Whether it be a lighter, cigarettes, vape, pocket knives. And lo and behold, I found a roach that had been mostly smoked. But, you know, so it was very early on in the year that we started to recognize we had a problem. In the winter of 2017, we started becoming aware of that there was some gang activity. Some kids that were kind of showing love with some gangs, or being related to some gangs. And as you started to watch, you could tell these kids were every day wearing the colors of the gang that they were representing. So that was pretty obvious. I suspended the second student for marijuana in those first couple of months. She returned from lunch. We used to have an open campus last year. Her and another girl walked past me as they came into the building, and again, you know, it hit me. I tried to cover it up with perfume. That does not work. And I said, ladies, you need to step in here into my office. And I mean, just the glassy eyes, it was really obvious. I said, I'm going to need to search through your stuff there. I suspect that you're under the influence. And as Officer Overturf came up, they disclosed to us that she was under the influence. The other girl was not. But they had driven to Shawnee for lunch under the influence. They had come back. We searched the vehicle. We did find Officer Overturf located a small amount of marijuana in the vehicle. And so we started asking, where did you get these drugs? Snapchat. 2 males from Midwest City had posted some pictures on Snapchat that they were selling marijuana, that it was high quality stuff, that they would meet you in an abandoned parking lot and you could buy this marijuana. So this 17-year-old girl and a friend drove to Midwest City, met these 2 adult males in an abandoned parking lot, and purchased drugs from them. And I said, do you realize how dangerous that was? We could never have seen you again. They could have killed you, kidnapped you, raped you, sold you. you know, whatever, do you understand how dangerous that is? And they don't. They don't understand that. And so that was a huge concern. At that same time, Officer Overturf taught me a quick little trick of how I could tell if someone was under the influence of marijuana or not. Changed my life, changed my poor students' lives, because it's pretty telltale, and I began to start routinely checking students, especially ones coming back from lunch. I would say in the first month after learning that, I probably sent home 15 kids high from school. Wouldn't find anything on them, but they were just under the influence. I started to notice a young lady had a little round red burn mark around her lips. That was in the winter. And asked a few questions, and she started, her appearance kind of started to change, her attendance kind of started to change, and of course then I realized at that time we had a bigger problem than marijuana. We had a meth problem, and when I started talking to kids, it was pretty obvious you could go across the street to the apartments and you could purchase meth. So that was pretty scary. That was the first time I'd seen it. That young lady then, about 2 months later, I think we had a random drug testing, and because she drove on campus, her name was drawn from the group, and of course she failed the test for meth, and shortly after that she dropped out. So we started becoming then aware that the dealers were using some of our students to bring the drugs on campus. And they were specifically targeting some of our special education kids. And that just really hit me pretty hard. That they would use kids who maybe did not have the mental capacity to understand what the consequences were, that they were making them feel like they belonged. They were giving them alcohol because they would distribute the drugs. They felt like they fit in, that they belonged, and they were really just using these kids to transport or carry their drugs. About that same time, we heard from the kids, and this was at the junior high and at my building, about a man named Irish had moved into the neighborhood down the street. Miss Drew, if you don't know Miss Drew, she just drove down and went to check it out to see if she could see who this man was. He did have a student in our district. The kids were scared of him. It was pretty obvious that he was someone who was related to the drug activity. He was very intimidating. He would threaten the students. And thank goodness he's not here any longer, but he was just down the street in McLoud, Oklahoma. In 2000.